Welcome to the Simple Doesn't Mean Easy podcast. We are here Mondays and Wednesdays working at simplifying things in our lives, one day at a time, one simple step at a time. I'm your host, Michelle Visser, and this episode is one in honor of the holiday we are celebrating this week here in the US. It is Independence Day this week, and I mean, it is just one day, but honestly, our family kind of really recognizes the whole week almost. Bill does have some work in his shop for partial days this week to get some cars done that need to be done, but he takes a slow work week. We have a ton of family in town, and it's just an exciting week all around. It's also my birthday week. July 3rd is my birthday. My family always joked that I was almost a firecracker. Um, but it's just an exciting week. So this episode's a little different, but it definitely fits in with our theme here on the podcast. Today, I'm going to share with you a story from our country's history that you have never heard before. And it's going to be one that really drives home a point for you that simple efforts, just one effort at a time, just doing what's in front of you and what small, simple change you want to make, just one, how it can make a world of difference and how it can impact lives around you for generations. I think you'll be encouraged by this story. Actually, it's kind of two stories this episode because I am going to be reminding you of one that I shared this time last year here on the podcast. That one was in a short 5-minute episode that I kept really succinct, but I shared with you a story of a founding father that you've probably never heard of before. And I'm going to reference that story again today. In fact, I should tell you the episode number for that. And I'm looking at my notes to see if I wrote that down. I did. Episode 120, which was, yes, the last 4th of July week. It was a story about a chestnut tree being planted by a founding father whose name would not even sound familiar to you, most likely. But I think you'll like the story. Like I said, I'm going to reference it today too. So last week, I stumbled across a simple 2-minute video on Facebook that stopped me cold and it made me realize this is what I wanted to talk about in today's episode. Oh, and one more thing. If you love a good cup of coffee, you really want to check out another sponsor. Go to jporganiccoffee.com. It stands for Java Planet. Use my code solely rested. You can even stack my code on top of their amazing bulk prices. This coffee is organic. It is mold free. It is grown in the shade, which means it is low in acid and it is so much better for your gut health, even your dental health. And because it's grown in the shade, it's never bitter. I personally love the Guatemala, but they have so many wonderful options to choose from. You really need to try it out. jporganiccoffee.com. Use code solely rested. SOULYRESTED. Okay, so that little 2-minute video that stopped me from scrolling when I was on Facebook last week, it was actually the simplest of videos. This woman was standing in an all white room with long drawers all around her and cabinets. And she introduced herself as the curator of the fine and decorative art collection at Mount Vernon. Now, first thing I thought was, wow, what a job. And how does somebody get that job? Like, wow, there aren't too many jobs like that, probably. But it was obvious that she very much thoroughly loves her job, which I think it is pretty cool. Um, I love history, just love it. So, anyway, she was standing in this room that she said was their textile storage room. And she pulled something out of a drawer and laid it on the counter that honestly, I'll be honest with you, I didn't think was that impressive looking per se. But she did explain that the colors have faded a lot over the years. So I'm sure it would have been prettier when it was, original and new. But it was seat cushions. Well, it was just one seat cushion that she was showing us. And it had a shell design on it, like a seashell design. And she explained that it was made by Martha Washington. But before I go into the story about Martha, let me back up and let me tell you a little bit about that chestnut tree story that I mentioned. The moral of that story was to really, it's the same thing actually as the moral of Martha's story, in my opinion, to really stay positive when you're facing daunting things and do the next simple thing that you need to do. It was a story about a horse chestnut, which I didn't know there were horse chestnuts, but that is a type of chestnut tree. And I actually will link in the show notes a picture of Bill and I standing in front of this exact tree that I'm talking about, that the story is about. It's an old tree. It was planted by William Whipple. Again, probably never heard his name, right? He was a signer of the Declaration of Independence, and he planted the seed for this horse chestnut tree when he had returned to his New England seaport home from Philadelphia after a very monumental occasion in 1776, which of course was the signing of the Declaration. Just imagine, like, as he planted this seed that he brought home with him, what he must have been thinking. I mean, he must have doubted if it would even be worth his effort. Like, is it even worth the hassle of watering it and caring for this seed? Because will we even still have a colony? Will we even still have a seaport here in the next months or year ahead? Or would it all be burned to the ground by the British forces? So, as we celebrate this week, the signing of that document that William Whipple literally risked his entire life and his family's life for, um, let's think about that little seed that he planted and celebrate that seed because it wasn't wasted. His effort was very worthwhile. And that huge, immense, gorgeous tree still stands today as a testament to his one simple act of faith and hope. So, back to Martha's story. There's this pattern of the shells and the leaves on this pillow that the woman is showing us, the curator. And she does tell us that it used to have 7 brilliant colors in it. Now, to me, it looked pretty much just yellow with a little bit of light orange, but it would have been a sunny yellow and a deep orange and a terracotta red and a burgundy. And she explained that these were cushion seats. They were intended to be like attached bases of a chair in the front parlor at Mount Vernon. And she probably would have used them or planned on using them as seats on the side of the room. Well, she started these chair cushions, Martha did, back in 1776. There's documents that they have that go with these cushions that tell them a lot of things about the cushions. And one thing they know is when she ordered the materials. And I think they said that she also documented that she had started making the cushions. So, 1776, all that is going on in these colonies. Here's William Whipple thinking about planting a tree, and here's Martha thinking about let's make some chair cushions when I can't even imagine the uncertainty that she was thinking of and facing. But the crazy thing is, these seat cushions, well, they took her a very long time. We have record 29 years later in 1794, Martha documented that she was still not done these seat cushions. At that point, she was living in Philly and she was the first lady. She writes to her niece, who's living back at Mount Vernon, and we still have their letters of correspondence. She writes to her asking her, please send me those cushions. And then she literally wrote, if they're not all eaten up by the moths. So I'm going, how sad, 29 years after she made them. She's very well aware that, well, I never even finished the set. Like she probably, I guess, was never even using them as the base of a seat because she's asking her niece to send her everything. So here she started this project, never even used them. And 29 years later, she's going, well, I know they might just be all moth eaten, but if they're not, send me them. Um, she finishes them. She finishes all 12. before she dies. She died in 1802, and they believe she finished them right before that. She did not, at that point, attach them to chairs any longer. I mean, I guess they had bottoms to their chairs in Mount Vernon 29 years before, and they were just gonna be an added thing. I don't know, but she didn't add them to her chairs when she finished them in 1802. She made them into loose cushions that could just lay in the Windsor armchairs, and she did that intentionally because she knew she wanted to pass them on, and she gave them to 3 different granddaughters. I guess they each got a set of 4, and some of the girls actually on the back of the cushion, so I'm not really sure what this was like. They did not show the back of it in the video. I wish they had. But I guess it wasn't a true loose pillow. It had some sort of a back that you could write on. And some of the girls actually wrote the story on the back of the cushion. And one of them was dated 1823. She wrote, "Worked by for her granddaughter, who gave it to her beloved child, and she has left it as a legacy to her daughter." Um, and I guess she must have put names. That's all I wrote down. But so 3 generations, though, of women after Martha were passing down these cushions. How cool is that? And they documented that, and they still have these cushions today. So 3 generations of women were reaping the benefits of Martha's determination. And here we are 250 years later, still talking about this one simple act. Her idea of getting the materials needed and making these cushions for her home long before she had any idea that she would then wind up finishing them in the White House as the first lady. But through all the turmoil of those 30 years of her life and all the stress and the worries she must have had, she followed through on this project. Also, on a side note, don't miss this. If you are a person who loves to have a delicious, wholesome, nutritious drink in your hand, if you're a person who is loving, if you can make a copycat of some of the junky drinks that you like to be drinking, but you choose to skip because they're loaded with artificial colors and flavors and all that stuff, I have something for you. Go to solelyrested.com/summer, SUMMER. And I am sharing some of the best summer drinks that you can make for yourself and for your family. You're going to love every one of them. Go to solelyrested.com/summer. So this 4th of July week, let's remember Mr. Whipple and Martha Washington. William Whipple's simple act now grows to tell the world, anyone who will look and see, um, as it's overlooking the picturesque Piscataqua River and the glorious land of the free that we now call home, to tell them, do it. The next simple thing. Have faith, have hope, and just take the step. So I have to say thank you, Mr. Whipple. Thank you for not only taking that long ride on horseback and that daring act of putting your pen to your paper in defiance of in the name of freedom, but thank you for your courageous, simple act of hope that still stands for us to see. And Martha, facing even more than the dreaded unknown of Britain's response to the rebellious act that her husband was directly involved in, she surely knew her husband would probably be involved in some way in the war that was probably going to be coming, right? As she started those cushions. I mean, it was a war that a ragtag colonial militia didn't really seem to have a lot of hope of winning. And maybe she thought her husband was going to retire from his military career because he had fought so well and valiantly in the French and Indian War. But surely she wasn't too many cushions into her project before she realized that she was far from having a retired husband. And she had more worries than just the war and how he might be involved in it. She had the worry that he was literally leading the war, but she kept working on her cushions. And then to think, when she was facing all the uncertainties of what being a first lady would entail, not only the pressure of being the very first one and setting all the expectations for the other first ladies, here she was focusing on a project that she was determined to see through. This time, it wasn't, of course, for that front parlor, but it was now also not something she was thinking about, "I need to make the White House beautiful." Well, maybe it was. I mean, she probably was thinking that she wanted to decorate her new White House because it probably was. Can you imagine that? Moving into an empty White House? Um, but she was also thinking she wanted to make it something that she could pass down, even in the midst of, like, this height of, we've reached the epitome of what we're gonna reach. My husband is the president of the United States. She's putting her focus off of herself and thinking about how this will impact future generations, her simple act, her projects that she's doing, and she wants to make them impactful. She wants to make them in a way that they can be passed down. I love that. So she turned her permanent attached cushions into something that could be moved and passed on. So if you're trying to simplify your life a bit in the midst of a chaotic world, take heart. Just one simple step towards simplifying your family's life. Just one thing, like planting a tree or making a pillow. Just one thing. Um, Maybe it's revamping your pantry. Maybe it's putting together a recipe book you've been thinking about putting together. Maybe it's just learning to make copycat drinks this summer, the kind of drinks that all your family loves to stop and buy at all the different shops and the Starbucks and all that. Instead, I'm gonna start making these drinks. Maybe that's your thing. But whatever the one thing is, it can someday reap a harvest that you can't even imagine today. And you think it's just one simple summer thing you're going to do about changing the way you're drinking things this summer. It could reap a harvest. It could change the way your grandchildren look at these things. So take take heart, be encouraged. I know that sometimes listening to the show and diving into all the resources that are at our fingertips on the World Wide Web, we can feel way overwhelmed. And the more we learn, the more we realize we don't know anything. Am I right? The more you uncover, the more you go, oh my word, there's more and more and more, and you see more layers, and it can feel so overwhelming. But I really, really want to encourage you to not let it, to think of these two folks that we talked about today and their very simple act and how it made such a difference. You just have to have faith, you have to have hope, and you have to do the one thing in front of you. We got this, guys. So, because of the holiday coming up and lots of great things, lots of family coming in town, I'm actually going to take a break for the next 2 weeks from recording. So, I will miss you guys, but I have something fun for you. I have asked my podcast editor if he can pull up a couple flashback episodes. I'm talking way back, and we're going back, guys, um, because I wanted to replay a few episodes that I think will encourage you in what way you might want to make this one simple step. Maybe you don't want to plant a tree or make some cushions or pillows, but I have some suggestions for you. I'm going to next week replay our episode from way back in season 3 about ditching sodas. And I give you 3 alternatives in that episode. And we talk through, first of all, why to ditch sodas. I encourage you why it really does matter. And I encourage you what ditching can be defined as, that you don't have to never again take a sip of Coke. But we walk through that. And then I give you 3 alternatives to drinking the bad stuff and some good stuff you could be drinking. But I will tell you, that was recorded years ago, and I have so many other suggestions. I'm going to just tell you really quickly. I hope that you listen next week to that episode. I think you will really like it. I think you will really be encouraged, and I think you will probably be shocked too. I share quite a few studies of sodas and what was found and how they impact our brain and all that stuff. And it's a good listen. But to give you a few more alternatives than I even mentioned them, Since then, we have a seltzer water maker. It's not one of those soda streams like the name brand Soda Stream. I did a lot of research a few years ago and I don't know the name of it. I'll put it in the show notes. Um, Actually, you know what? Go to solelyrested.com/Coke, COKE, and I link the soda machine that we use there. And I also give you a few other things I'm going to tell you about in a second. So I love this soda machine though, or seltzer water maker, because you can have a sugary substance in your bottle before you add the carbonation to it. That's something that you will not find in a soda stream or a lot of other ones out there on the market. But I really wanted to be able to put fruit, which of course is naturally sugary, in my water, let it infuse the water, and then use that water, adding bubbles to it and use it with other things. And that's something you can't do with a lot of these soda machines. I guess they're worried about they're going to explode maybe. I'm not sure why, but this one is made differently and you can do that. But you also can even add your syrup into the water and then carbonate it. So anyway, um, just one thing you might want to look at when you're looking for one of these cool machines. Um, so that's one thing I will do a lot is simply drink carbonated fruit water. If I'm really wanting something soda-ish, that's a nice substitute. But I also like using the carbonated machine to add bubbles to my electrolyte drinks. And I love adding bubbles to my homemade Coke, my homemade root beer, and I even make a kind of Dr. Pepper tasting soda by using about 4/5 of my Coke syrup with about 1/5 root beer syrup and then adding the carbonated seltzer water. It's a really good drink. All three of those, my Coke syrup, my root beer syrup, and my Dr. Pepper variation. And I share that recipe and link to the other stuff at solelyrested.com/Coke. So back when I recorded this episode back in season 3, I hadn't yet played around with this. I didn't know I could make my own Coke. So I wanted to make sure I told you that. So you know when you're listening to that. And then the week after that, we're going to replay something from season 4. It's actually my number one, still to this day, downloaded episode. People are still downloading it every week. So we're going to replay it again 2 weeks from now. And it's about 7 things that you can make better yourself instead of purchasing them. Things for your kitchen, really great substitutes that you can easily make better yourself. So that's in 2 weeks. So I hope you enjoy those replays, those flashes back to the past. I hope you have a fantastic holiday week ahead if you're listening to this live. And I hope that today's stories encouraged you. I'm looking to see, I think there was something else I wanted to tell you. No, I guess not. Oh, just that if you're a longtime listener, take a second to go over to Apple Podcast and leave a review because we're watching over there for folks telling us what their favorite episodes were. And it's going to be fun to look through those and share some thoughts with you in the weeks ahead. So that's at Apple Podcast, or you can go to solelyrested.com/podcast. I would love to see your review, see your thoughts on the show. Okay. So remember, guys, it's easy to forget how blessed we are to live this life. So enjoy those simple, everyday efforts. It's not easy, but it's a good life.